So I want to work out another example. We're going to work out number 3. I want you to use this example to help you solve all of the questions that have this kind of format. So looking for the radiation of a photon. So in order to do this, you're going to need to use the electromagnetic spectrum. We have this on page 98 of the textbook. All right, so by the way, the textbook, you can find it online in ClassLink. So if you go to the app Ed, My Friend, and Learning, okay, Learning, you get it. That's the textbook. All right, moving on. So in question number 1, they gave us some information that we're going to need. They gave us the wavelength that was just in the question, and we calculated the frequency based off of this wavelength. That was from number 1. I want to make this a little bit bigger, so all I did was take that information. This is, again, page 98 in the textbook. So first thing I want to do, we need to look at the wavelength, but instead of looking at it in scientific notation, I want to just convert this into one number. So this is 4 times 10 squared. 10 squared is the same thing as saying 100. So 4 times 100 is 400. Let me see if I can't type it. So the wavelength can be rewritten as 400 nanometers. And it's probably easier to look for 400 nanometers than this. So make sure you're looking at the right unit. So you notice here there are meters. That's why I crossed the meters off, because we're looking for nanometers. Here there are centimeters. So we cross that off because, again, we're looking for nanometers. So if you keep moving forward, you can see 400 nanometers right here. So this light we're going to look at is violet light. Now, we can also look at the frequency and determine the type of radiation based off of that. So for frequency, it has exponent of 10 to the 14. Now, here's where things get a little bit weird. If you go to the textbook and you look for 10 to the 14, it's going to look like this is infrared light. But in reality, the textbook, I don't know why it has this, is a little bit off. So there's another infrared electromagnetic spectrum that I put in the form. It looks like this. And here you can see 10 to the 14 hertz is actually violet light. So this one is more correct. I'm not sure why the textbook has infrared as 10 to the 14th, because in reality, infrared is 10 to the 12th. I'm sure, like, if you look up other electromagnetic spectrums, so even if you don't have the textbook, you can always Google this. And you go to images. Let's see. There's probably a bunch of different sources. Let's look at this one. So this one just has the wavelength. So let's try and look at one that has frequency in it. So this one has frequency. So notice for this one, 10 to the 14th, they have it in infrared as well. But you see how it ranges? So there's a huge range here, 10 to the 12th, all the way to 10 to the 14th. It looks like violet light should be somewhere along 10 to the 15th in this one. So let's look at one more just to compare sources. So in this one, they have, this is an electron wavelength. This one doesn't have frequency. Let's try and find one with frequency. This one has frequency. So infrared here, they have it as 10 to the 12th. And they have the visible light. So here's violet light right around here. Looks like it's more around 10 to the 14th. The point that I'm trying to get across is that data varies based off of the experiment that you get the data from. So sometimes these charts might have slightly different numbers. I don't want you guys to stress out, because on the form, I am not going to give you, for instance, I would never put violet versus ultraviolet versus infrared. Obviously, there's some discrepancy there. It can vary. So instead of putting something that could be confusing, I made it super obvious, and the answer choices were in between violet light and microwaves. Well, microwaves are all the way over here. So make this a little bit bigger. Microwaves were 10 to the 1st centimeters. So definitely not microwaves. Clearly it is violet light. So I hope that helps. Please don't get confused. Just choose the answer that is closest to whatever information you were given.